Well, hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live Q&A where I'm delighted to be joined by Steve Underwood, who is the managing partner of Dentsu. So Dentsu is one of the top 6 agencies globally by billings, employing circa 50,000 team members across 110 countries. And Steve is also a member of the Dentsu North Board, leading the strategic direction for the largest regional agency outside of London, with over 800 team members across 9 agency brands in 4 locations. So hello and welcome, Steve. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate the invite.
Very, very impressive role and career that you've had. And today we're going to talk about well-being at work.
Yeah, great. I mean, really important area. Really pleased you talk through it, really. So, yeah.
So we were just talking before there how because of the role that you've got, obviously I've just explained a bit about who you are and what you do, but because of the role, you've got a very big responsibility, but also an opportunity to affect the well-being of your colleagues and your members. So do you want to talk a little bit about that, about why you think it's important or how you're approaching this?
Yeah, so I guess, it's quite a topical area, but we've invested time, energy, some financial investment as well over the past few years, really around creating a great place to work. Well, that's the ambition at Dentsu, and a real pivotal pillar within that, if you like, is our people and ensuring that they have a good environment to work in and everything that goes with that. So, well-being isn't a new area that we suddenly exploring. It's actually, something that we've really focused on at the agency and will continue to do so. I think, it goes without saying that it's been amplified over the past, particularly 6, 9, 12 months with the, global pandemic and the additional challenges that that's brought on everyone, really, not just our agency, obviously, but the whole sort of business environment, business community. So, so it's really come to the forefront, and not more so than today, this month. It's super important that we place real high priority on people's well-being, and actually, it's an area that I found one really challenging when we first went into lockdown back in March last year. From a leadership perspective, it was challenging for everyone, but from a leader's perspective, it was tough because it wasn't about me. I was super conscious about the people that work for us. Thinking like, is everyone all right? All of a sudden you're not with them. Everyone's working remotely, and it was tough really to have the reassurance that everybody was okay. And we put quite a few things in place. We learned quite a lot through that process. We just did our best really to make it through. So yeah, it's a super important area, well-being, and none more so than in the environment that we find ourselves in. So like many others, we're just trying to do our best really, and just do what's right for our people and create the right platform, to be honest, just to enable people to be okay. As much as we can, with as much as within our control, which a lot isn't at the moment, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, it was already like mental health and well-being was already becoming much more. People were becoming more aware of it, and then I still think it definitely wasn't mainstream. More and more people were talking openly about it. Probably the last couple of years, at least, people have been talking openly about it. But then I think now, because of COVID, like you say, everybody kind of gets it, understands it a bit better now because they've been impacted directly in some way, some more than others. So do you think have you noticed that kind of people are a bit more receptive to talking about this sort of thing now through the work that you're doing or even outside of work?
Well, I mean, the importance of it is certainly coming to the forefront. We see that, in daily life and also, across platforms like LinkedIn and elsewhere. And rightly so, to be honest. It's probably, hopefully, a positive that's going to come out of the pandemic. One of the positives that, it's always been there, the importance of it. It's just coming through is being prioritised now by employers, by people in general, recognising that looking after well-being, looking after mental health, other areas is super important, and that's really, really positive, right? So, but it's still a sort of evolving area. I'm certainly not an expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not, from that background. And again, as a leader, we're just trying to do our best and bring it to the forefront for discussion, bring it into the boardroom, bring it into, up the priority list in organisations like ours, to have that open discussion that's needed, and really just to make sure everyone's all right. So yes, it's coming through in importance, and I think the understanding and the realization that it's a super important area is definitely been amplified over the last 6-9 months. Yeah. And good, let's take it forward. Let's, hopefully when we do go back to some sort of more normal environment, this doesn't go away and it stays and increases in terms of its priority within those sort of discussion areas. Physical health has been talked about, and again, rightly so, for a long time. I think, and personal viewpoint is that the likes of mental health will become equally important moving forward as well. In those, as we talk about sort of the value of health and what it means for us as individuals, as businesses, as teams, as employers, etc.
Yeah. Well, you said during that although you're not a psychologist, I do still think it's really good and important that someone like yourself is talking about this, because a lot of the people who tend to talk about mental health and well-being tend to be, I would say, freelancers or micro business owners or entrepreneurs or mental health and well-being experts. So I think it is really interesting that someone like yourself, who's a senior business leader of a major company, global company, is talking about this on platforms like this. And, yeah. So do you want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the initiatives that you've maybe at Dentsu and also maybe outside of Dentsu?
Yeah, great. Well, the most current one is, we've teamed up with Red January, who exist. I've taken part in Red January for the last 3 years now as an individual, and actually in the Newcastle team, the last couple of years we've supported it as well. We've expanded it out this year to bring together, I think it's about 130 people now within the sort of business and advertising community in the region. Set ourselves a bit of a challenge around completing steps and miles over the course of the month. Red January is an initiative set up by Hannah Beecham, actually the CEO, to promote or highlight the benefits of exercise for mental well-being, for mental health, with the tagline of "Beat the Blues Away" in January, and essentially it's about getting out and about, getting some fresh air, getting some exercise, with the view that will be positive towards your mental health and your well-being. So in the current environment, we wanted to do something really positive for our people. We want to start the year right. I think a lot of people will be aligned with, wanting to see light at the end of the tunnel from the current situation, and if we can, come into 2021 with a bit of gusto and energy towards, let's try and, do what's best for ourselves, for our people, and move forward in a positive way. And that's what this challenge is all about, really. And I'd just like to say thanks to everyone who's taken part in that, because, the enthusiasm, the effort that's now being seen through the community, through the LinkedIn group we've set up, it's just brilliant, really. So it's more than I could have hoped for. We came up with the idea in December, so it's been on the fly a little bit, sort of setting it all up, galvanizing interest. But again, it's just a positive thing that we're doing. We're not looking for any sort of applause off the back of it or anything like that. It's just the right thing to be doing for our people. So, and I'm really pleased it's got a positive response. So that's the most current initiative. We've done similar challenges like that. Within the subject area of mental health and well-being, I am particularly an advocate myself of exercise and trying to create the time to do that, even if it's just going out for a walk or whatever. And creating the time's quite tough sometimes, right? We live busy lives and so forth. So and often it gets deprioritized. But I'm a real advocate of the benefits that exercise can bring to that. It certainly works for me. I see it working for other people as well. I'm not suggesting it's a one-size-fits-all approach, but you know, it's certainly something that I like to encourage people to do. So that fits with the Red January side of things, and we've done things like step challenges, exercise-related initiatives at the Newcastle unit within the agency as well. Before, I could say, over the last couple of years, particularly. You know, and other areas we invest in as well. We've done like yoga lessons. Mental meditation, you know, loads of stuff. I'm not going to start reeling it off, but and again, it's not really about the different elements. It's more about having the priority around this area and recognizing that it's an area we need to discuss, particularly in our industry, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But you know, I came into marketing, you know, 25 years ago now, with my eyes open. I always had ambitions to work in agency side. I have done now for most of that time, about 20 years, and I certainly had my eyes open that it would be, you know, a choice that might not be the least stressful, shall we say, in terms of careers. And you know, I think a lot of marketers realize that you know, there will be stressful times, there will be challenging situations that have to be addressed through their career, you know, through their working life. Obviously, as employers, we try to minimize those situations, but it'd be wrong to suggest otherwise. So I think when you marry the two up and you say, look, you know, we're marketers, we work agency side particularly, it can be quite stressful, but let's support each other through that, and let's set up on a strategic level, you know, initiatives that help each other to get through those sorts of periods, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I've never worked for an agency. I mean, my background is marketing and comms, and but so I've worked more as a marketer for big companies and small companies. But yeah, I've never experienced what it's like to work at an agency. But I can imagine. I mean, do you want to say a bit like what does make it stressful, or what does make it pressured? Is it clients? Is it internal stuff? Deadlines? You know, what is it that's so stressful about the industry that you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't overplay it in terms of, it can be stressful. I mean, I don't find it stressful now, but I've been in it quite a while. So, I mean, obviously you get stressful situations, you do everything, but you know, we sort of just ride them out a little bit. To answer your question, it's probably the pace. It's probably, you know, it's a service-based business. It requires quick turnarounds. You know, often there can be sort of peaks and troughs in terms of campaign requirements, workloads, etc. So, you know, you combine those things together, and it can mean that, you know, you can be put under pressure sometimes, I suppose. You know, that's just the nature of the job. Lots of other jobs like that out there, and lots of different types of pressures. I mean, one of the things not to downplay it, but we often say is, like, you know, you're not saving lives, you're running advertising campaigns, you're engaging audiences for clients, which is super important, because the clients, you know, they're investing in those areas, and we want to do the best job we can for them, obviously. But, you know, you compare it, particularly in the current environment, to some of the macro things that are going on in the world, without, you know, don't want to sort of go off on a tangent on about those, but you know, there's people doing in incredibly stressful situations at the moment, should we say, in the NHS and so forth. So I want to be realistic when I talk about how stressful it is. However, yeah, the elements, in terms of answering your question, is probably the pace, the workloads at times, and the ambitions that we have for clients, and we want to do our best, and that often means that we put ourselves under pressure to overachieve for them, hopefully.
Yeah, but it is, well, it definitely looks, it's exciting as well, isn't it? You know, if you work in that industry, you're at often the cutting edge of what you're doing. I know definitely when I've heard you speak at some of your events, you are like right at the cutting edge of the latest techniques for marketing and advertising. So that, I guess that's a trade-off, isn't it? If people want to work in those innovative environments and can be rewarded very well for that work as well, you're going to get those high pressure environments. So it's how to manage them. Maybe not necessarily you have downtime, but on the less stressful, how do you manage your time more carefully so that you are yourself a bit more breathing space, and you are taking care of yourself, and you're getting the exercise, and you're not burning yourself out all the time. So
so I think you're exactly right. I mean, that's the way that I've always tried to approach it, and particularly in the last few years, a good few years actually, you know, I've done a lot of reading around time management. It sounds like a very basic thing to be reading about, but it's super important, because, you know, this all influences the whole picture really. If you can manage your time effectively, if you can create good quality downtime, as you've referenced, that really helps. You know, if you can section off periods of your working week into, right, you know, I'm not going to work, I'm not going to engage in my devices, I'm going to not be always on, I'm actually going to have a break. That helps so much, right? So I think, you know, managing your time effectively is a super important skill. And the reading that I've done backs that up. You know, the best CEOs of the biggest companies in the world actually spend a lot of time focusing on how do they manage their time effectively. Lots of reading out there that you can do around certain techniques and so forth. So it's applicable right from sort of entry-level roles right to the most senior roles that exist. So I'd certainly recommend that as an approach. And yeah, quality over quantity when you work is also a good piece of advice, I suggest.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because, you know, we've got all these ways to automate processes. Got ways to, you know, we can use Uber to get a taxi faster. We can use food delivery apps. We've got all these time-saving devices and systems, but we're just filling our time with stuff. You know, like, so even though we're getting food delivered faster, people are taking photos of the food and sharing it on. Do you know, like, humans aren't very good at not doing things. But
well, I mean, we talk about digital economy quite a bit at the agency and the advertising environment, the growth of technology and digital industries essentially for businesses. And two key attributes of that are just what you referenced there, essentially. You know, the always-on nature of consumers, particularly, which has been fueled by mobile. So, you know, the general behaviours essentially around always being connected to your mobile device and other devices, and struggling essentially to switch off. And I think we talked about before, you know, the proliferation of messages that happen through certain platforms on mobile as well. I mean, you know, it's very easy to become overwhelmed with content with messages, and all that sort of together combines into, you know, quite an overwhelming experience if you don't, unless you create the downtime that we talked about before. And then the other attribute we've referenced is sort of convenience. So, you know, that's a increasingly important expectation for consumers, particularly, you know, speed of delivery, ability to do things like order takeaways or do searches online through search engines incredibly quickly, and basically find the answers that people need quickly to get what they want quickly. You know, it's becoming a common part of life, really. So the expectation from individuals around this is increasing all the time, and these are the sorts of things that we talk to clients about when they're trying to improve their business performance. So
yeah, do you do, I don't know, do you do anything? Do you like turn you maybe don't, maybe it's impossible for you to do you have time where you turn your devices off or put it so for a while in the end of last year, I was actually physically putting my phone in another room when I needed to do deep work and I needed to really focus on something. But I've started using an app called Forest, Forest app, which is, it sounds a bit silly, but you can basically set time that you're going to focus on a particular task, and you grow virtual trees, right? It's nice that you're actually growing virtual trees, and you get awards for it. You know, you're getting coins, you're getting little achievement badges and stuff like that. But you can actually plant real trees if you use it. But it's just nice to see that you're actually achieving something and what you're focusing your time on, and that's definitely helped me. Just, it's gamifying it, I suppose, just being a bit more focused and not checking my phone as often, because it is a massive distraction. So that's something worth looking at.
No, it's great. I mean, any sort of techniques like that are brilliant, and I'll definitely check that app out. It sounds quite good. Interesting, really. This sort of question area. I think it's changed for me and probably a lot of other people during since March last year. You know, when we've not been in the office, and not to state the obvious, but you know, it did create natural breaks in your working day, like going into the office, commuting, coming back from the office, and then you know, and that's been sort of the working pattern, right, for forever. And then suddenly you're in a different working pattern that doesn't create those natural breaks, and it's very, I find it very, very easy without those natural breaks to just slip into that always on approach, particularly on mobile. And actually, you know, I've got 2 young children, as you're aware. I've been through periods in the past of almost like trying to switch my phone off at weekends. It's quite an interesting exercise, actually. It's harder than you think, but well, I certainly find it harder than I think. Yeah, actually, you know, you say putting it in another room, you know, that type of thing. So yeah, just being conscious around those types of things, really, you know, creating unnatural breaks, if you like, and saying, right, I'm going to stop now. I'm going to turn this device off. I'm going to do something else. You know, just little tactical techniques like that can really help, I think.
Yeah, I've found that well, being outside, you know, if I go outside, if I go for a walk, or you know, I think, you know, I started skateboarding again last year. So when I've been going skateboarding, when I've been going for walks, I'm not checking my phone. Or particularly if I'm somewhere where the signal's not particularly good, or just even things like, I like doing the dishes, you know, they'll give me time to think and do different, just totally switch off, do something quite menial, manual and a bit mundane, or doing the hoovering or cutting the lawn or something like that. I have some of my best ideas when I'm switched off and I can't check my phone. Or even going to the cinema. When we used to go to the cinema, I used to love that time to just really immerse myself in something different. And 9 times out of 10, I would have a great idea off the back of that, myself that space to think and not be looking at my phone, or not be thinking about work.
I mean, that's one of the things that really works for me is the sort of getting out and about, doing the exercise. You know, I'm doing Red January. Managed to get out for a walk this morning, actually, which is great. And I've got a route that's about an hour. I do often combine it with a couple of calls, actually, which also really works for me. But just having some time to think when you're not on the calls, and where I live, sort of on the edge of the Northumberland countryside as well, which helps because you literally feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, which is great. So yeah, I can completely align with what you're saying. You know, being able to take yourself away and create that sort of thinking time, and arguably that type of time is undervalued. I think it's hard to tangibly put value on it. You know, say, look, well, I just spent 30 minutes thinking there, and this is what I got out of it. But I do think it's a super important thing, and particularly, you know, if you're from a business perspective, if you're in the type of role that requires sort of strategic thought, planning, that type of stuff. It's really difficult to do that if you're doing stuff all the time, you know, to create the sort of necessary thought process that enables good planning, good strategic thought. So yeah, I'd definitely be an advocate of what you just suggested there. And what works for me is, as I say, with the Red January type initiative, just getting out there and having a bit of time, getting a bit of fresh air and being away from it, really.
Yeah. I think sometimes people feel like they have to go to the gym or they have to do some big like physical exercise, but you don't. Like you say, even just a walk. If you can commit to doing something every day, then just the act of physically moving, getting away from your screen and going into a different environment. I definitely think there's something about seeing greenery as well. You know, if you're seeing fields or trees or fresh air, just taking yourself into a different environment is really good for you. Well, it's obviously good fresh air. A little bit of exercise is better than none. It takes you away from that your screen time where you're not being constantly interrupted or distracted. And I like walking and talking. I mean, you're doing it when we've had phone calls where you've been out on a walk and I don't know, when you do get back to the office eventually, Have you ever done that? Just gone for walk and talk with colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been talking about to our senior team actually about is bringing it again, a positive takeaway, I suppose, from the pandemic, from what we've been immersed in over the last period of time. It's certainly something I want to take forward when we go back, when we sort of return to the office, and we don't know at the moment what sort of format that might take in terms of agility around time in office anyway. But, you know, there's no reason, and again, it's quite a forward-thinking piece. It's not a brand new idea, but, you know, walking meetings and so forth. I think if you can combine, you know, the benefits of what we just talked about with being able to cover off things like meetings and so forth. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interestingly, what our team will testify to, I'm sure, is I actually, when I'm on calls, particularly on my mobile, I do walk around quite a bit anyway. I do like the sort of energy that you get from being on your feet. Not often one for sort of just sitting at a desk and chatting. I do meetings, obviously, and you know, particularly with clients and so forth. But, you know, where possible, I do sort of walk around, and I get quite a bit of energy from that. And if I can get outside, even better, you know. So I'm very much an advocate of that stuff. And absolutely, like, you know, I do have visions that when we go back, we'll integrate this more into sort of working way of doing things.
Yeah, I think there's something about walking alongside someone where you're more kind of, you're together. You're like consulting or collaborating with someone when you're alongside them, rather than opposite each other on a desk, where it can potentially be a bit more confrontational, or you know, a bit like me versus them, even if it's not intended to be that way. There's something about walking alongside with someone. I think Steve Jobs was a big fan of this. He would regularly go for walking meetings with colleagues or board members or trusted advisors just around the block, you know. So there's no downside to it, you know. Why would you getting a little bit of exercise, but you also have a deep conversation walking along with someone. So yeah, maybe something to think of when you do, even if you have to wear a mask when you a meter or 2 meters apart from each other.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
that'd be good.
I noticed you talk about getting out. You do post regularly on social about you being outside, going for walks and being in the fresh air on your own, or with your kids, or with your wife. And is that, do you think, well, I think that's important that you're doing that. Was that a deliberate thing to kind of set a good example, or you just wanted to document that you were doing it for yourself?
Yeah, well, you know, honestly, it's in the sort of ambitions of like helping people, essentially. There's been a few, I suppose I just felt compelled, really, particularly over, you know, since March last year, just to, if I can, I've always been of this mind, but, you know, if I can, particularly in the current challenges that we've got, help people, then I will. And I suppose it's just another aspect of that, really. It works for me. I've shared it on social quite a bit. I've talked about it. Meetings on the move is a phrase that I've coined. Because I believe in it. It works for me. And if people haven't, for whatever reason, thought about it or prioritized it, perhaps, you know, seeing those types of posts, reading them, being inspired by them, and saying, you know what, I'm gonna give that a go, and then they find it might work for them in some capacity. Brilliant. If it doesn't, they've tried it and move on, kind of thing. So, you know, yeah, I'm very keen to be forward thinking and share things that work for me if it can help other individuals, and that's the motivation, really. That's the reason that I share that type of content. And again, I'm not suggesting I'm coming up with new ideas. It's really just saying, look, you know, this is what is working for me, and I know people are struggling at the moment. I know in many different ways, and if I can help them, then I will. If it's something as simple as that. Which also, you know, I don't know if we're going to cover Future Friday at all, and it's not necessarily a well piece, but that's another initiative actually that I mentioned, but something that we started towards, it was about June time actually, so it wasn't quite the start of lockdown, but and naturally, you know, within our industry, within other industries as well, with the challenges that have been brought on by the pandemic for businesses, there's been a lot of people that found themselves at risk of redundancy, you know, it's usually uncertain time, and also other areas that, you know, other businesses that are growing and they're recruiting people. So we thought, well, you know, if we can connect, you know, businesses with people, if we can do that in an effective way, in a simple way, in a manageable way, and something that works through a business platform like LinkedIn, we might not give it a go. And it's really taken off, actually. You know, and hopefully it will continue to do so, just for that ambition again of helping people out, really. I know for a fact that we've actually placed a few people into roles directly. We collaborated with a lot of brands over the course of the last sort of 7 months now that it's been running. And it's been positive. You know, we've got into a process of it being quite manageable. It takes a couple of hours a week, really, on average, to deliver it. So essentially, it's just the post that we do on a Friday with hashtag Future Friday. Try and post it as early as possible to get the full reach of the day. Encourage people to get involved. You know, we obviously work with brands and collate information around open roles for the Northeast at the moment, and we share that with our networks across LinkedIn and Twitter, with the view of sort of highlighting roles that are available out there to candidates who might be looking, perhaps because they've been made redundant or otherwise. And there's an element as well of, with it being Northeast based, hopefully it retains talent in the region. You know, we talk about that quite a lot. From a skills perspective, you know, we want to retain skilled people within our region, and so that we only help the economy, only help the business environment. So, you know, if we can help fulfill that even in a small way by connecting skilled individuals who may be in a difficult circumstance to, you know, relevant jobs, good, you know, brilliant, let's do it, kind of thing. And that was really the mantra we did, and we just cracked on with it, and it seems to be working, and getting traction, increased traction all the time. So
brilliant. Have you been doing that every Friday since
every
June?
Friday? Yeah. I didn't do Christmas Day, actually.
Oh, okay.
I did actually talk to my wife about getting dressed up in a Santa's outfit and doing some stuff, but she was like, "No, give it a rest. Like, you can So we focused on giving the presents to the children, as you do on Christmas Day, rather than going on LinkedIn and posting. So yeah, we had a day off on Christmas Day, but yeah, every other Friday since June, we've run it, and we'll continue to. For an undefined period, really. I don't see why it shouldn't continue beyond some sort of normality being introduced. Yeah. Hopefully.
Was that something that you came up with, or was it with Dentsu as an agency, or
not to blow my own trumpet, but yeah, it was my idea. Yeah. No, so, and you know, encourage those ideas. I talked about it with people. You know, it was a team decision. You know. We try and encourage, you know, creativity, obviously, all the time. Talking about ideas at the moment for the Red January stuff. We had huge support coming forward from the likes of Google, Twitter, some other media partners like ITV, Teeds, who all want to get involved and offer prizes and so forth. So, you know, again, we're challenging the team and working all the time on creative ideas and encouraging people to come forward. And it was the same with Future Friday. It just happened to be me that came forward with the idea at that time, but there's lots of other ideas that come forward all the time from across the whole team, really. And I really truly value the opinions of my team. So we always sort of have that sort of collaborative leadership approach where I sort of, at the very least, use the team as a sounding board, ask their opinions, ask their views, and they thought it was a good idea. And you know, massive thanks really to the Dentsu team as well for getting behind the initiative and supporting it through sort of liking and sharing the posts and everyone else who's got involved. I mean, it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's excellent that you've done that, because it's an example of creativity but also leadership in the industry as well. Because like you say, it's beyond the day-to-day work. You don't have to do that, but if you're in a position to do that, in a position to help in a way that's not going to take up too much time or effort, but that's fantastic that you're doing that, and that people are getting behind it. You're helping people find new roles in challenging times, and they'll remember that. And again, there's no downside to do that. So well done for doing that, and well done for the team for getting behind it.
And I think what's been really positive as well, I was a little bit concerned. So, you always weigh up, like, what are the pros and cons of this? What are the downsides? What are the potential risks of any type of new idea? And I thought, I wonder if it's going to like frustrate some of the recruitment agents in the region. If it really takes off, like, obviously that's their business and so forth. Massive thanks again for all the recruitment people that have got on board and helped and posted that. We've encouraged them to post on the threads and so forth. And it's really sort of been a collaborative regional effort in that respect. So
yeah, good. Got a couple of questions come through. I don't know if you can see them or not, but Dilesh, so Dilesh asks, have you noticed any correlation between how well people are able to look after themselves and give themselves breaks, like mental step away from work, and the quality of their creative output? That might be yourself or your colleagues, but do you think there is any?
Well, from personal experience, and also, personal experience for myself, and then the other people that I work with, I believe there's direct alignment. Without having data in front of me, I believe there's a direct alignment just through my own view, really, and what I've seen from experience, that if you can create that quality time, if you can have a focus on quality over quantity and create those natural breaks, and really focus on what works for you in those periods, for your downtime, to create that quality of time that we talked about, I think it only aids particularly creativity in relation to the question. I think for creative thought, for effective creative thought, you do need to create time to have that without distraction. And that's, and I put that in a similar vein to what I talked about before with strategy, planning, creativity. These require sort of brain time, if you like, as well as the skills behind those sort of different elements. So I've certainly seen at our agency that people who've been able to do that effectively, create time, create quality time, and if they're on good form, and if that's delivered via, if they're feeling good about themselves and that's been delivered via, some type of approach, then that often fuels better ideas as well. That's what I've seen in my experience.
Okay, that's good to hear. I can't remember the name of the guy, but I remember being told once about a designer, like a world-renowned designer, who every so many years he would take a complete break from work, and he would basically just go on holiday. He would just like travel the world. He would go to museums and galleries. He would just soak up as many ideas and inspirational experiences, so that the next day he would come back all fired up and ready to go again. And I think he did every 5 years or something like that. I thought that was really interesting. And then you know this anyway. Since December 2019, the 5 themes that I've been using for the Newcastle Week events, I've started living my life according to the same 5 themes. So Monday to Friday, every Monday is what I call Inspiration Day. So on a Monday, it's not to say that I don't ever do any work on a Monday, but on a Monday, that's my day of soaking up ideas and inspiration. So I will read books, I'll do some training, I'll learn a new skill, I'll go for walks, I'll watch films, I'll watch TV, I'll listen to podcasts, I'll have conversations with interested and inspiring people. And that's every Monday. I've done that since December 2019. And then Tuesday is my getting started day. That's the day when I'm all fired up and I've been inspired and I'm ready to go for the rest of the week. And that works really well for me, structuring my day according to that, because weekends aren't always relaxing.
Yeah,
especially if you've got kids, they're not always relaxing. You've got kids, so having a day, it's half a day to yourself where it's for you to have that creative time, that inspiring time. I'm finding that very useful.
But and it's quite a pertinent topic area, really. I suppose just coming up off the back of Christmas, I always say that from a business perspective, it's one of my favourite times, because it's pretty much one of the only times you can guarantee that there's limited chance of contact in terms of, like, clients needing things urgently or team members needing support, because everyone's off. And with that sort of context in mind, I actually find it's an important family time for me, particularly the young family, but I also find it a good time to think and for as long as I can remember, really, I've come back in the new year with sort of fresh ideas, fresh perspectives on things that have enabled me to psychologically start the year in a certain way that's positive, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's an example, really, of, you know, if you can create that time, particularly if it's been a longer period of time, I suppose, to half a day a week, for instance, you know, there's benefit, but it's tough to do that. I don't think you underplay how difficult it is, because you know, in our busy working lives, there's always things to do, and you can sometimes feel like you should be doing things. You know, you should be getting through that task list, or you should be, you know, moving these projects forward, or again, it comes down to the prioritization of that downtime, or that thought time of creating good quality time, particularly if you have the type of priorities of, you know, creative thinking, strategy planning, and that type of stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. You're right. I mean, Christmas is that, yeah, although some people are working during Christmas, it is the one time of the year when people don't expect you to be working or expect you to respond. So it's the one time when you can completely switch off and spend time to be with whoever you want, and take some time out. So yeah, I've always loved that time, and always come back feeling refreshed and excited about the year ahead. Got another question here from Colin. He's saying he's decided to come away from Facebook for a month, but he still finds LinkedIn important for him and his business. So what are your thoughts on that? I guess it's kind of, well, what are your thoughts on Facebook versus LinkedIn, I guess? And are you finding that it's changing? Like, LinkedIn's becoming more important and Facebook less important, or I don't know how you want to answer that.
Okay. I mean, obviously, two different social platforms, we talk quite a lot about audiences. I think it would be fair to say two different audience sets. You know, start from the basics, I suppose. LinkedIn is seen as a business platform, Facebook less so, although I'm aware that there is, particularly through sort of small businesses, consultants, etc., there is a level of interaction on a business level through that platform, and actually, you know, I think that's only going to increase. But on the assumption that we look at Facebook largely as a non-business platform, and LinkedIn as primarily a business platform, I mean, certainly for myself and a lot of other people, they have that distinction, I suppose, that then relates to how they use those platforms. I wouldn't say that Colin's the only person who's made the choice to move away from Facebook. I'm aware of other people that have. I'm not suggesting that's a good thing. I'm just saying that happens. But at the same time, the usage of Facebook, certainly on a global level, and even, I believe, in this country, is still growing. It's just a shift in dynamic of particularly certain elements around age and so forth, around usage that we see in the market from Facebook's data. I think from a LinkedIn perspective, the data suggests that there's been a significant increase in the use of the platform since the pandemic started back in March, which is only natural to expect. You know, people working from home, less sort of face-to-face interaction, more virtual interaction, particularly from a commercial perspective, and sharing content, getting content. You know, its usage has increased exponentially within this community in the UK. My usage has probably increased quite a lot as well, although I was an active user, daily user anyway. But I have, you know, it's a platform that I use quite a lot for different reasons. As you mentioned, posting content, and I've always used it as a platform for like connecting with people as well, and, you know, staying connected, having conversations and so forth, and that really works. Really works for me. My views are, I mean, I think it's all down to the individual, why they're using the platform, what they're looking to get out of it. I'd suggest, you know, just be sensible with the usage, really. Goes without saying. But as long as you can fit it into your overall sort of lifestyle in an effective way, and it's not having a negative impact, such as through too much screen time or other means, then I can see the positive benefits of both platforms, really. I use Facebook quite a bit. actually not less so from a personal perspective and keeping in touch with people on a personal level. I use Instagram more for that. But I quite like sort of the messenger function, particularly actually, messaging local businesses if I need to. I use it quite a lot. People aren't in the office, and generally you can get a decent response through Messenger. I think businesses sort of prioritizing that within the business comms. So and I don't mind a bit of Facebook Marketplace as well now and then. So I actually use different elements, like the sort of newer attributes really of Facebook as opposed to the more traditional ones. But it'd be wrong of me to suggest either way, like whether people should switch off certain platforms for their own well-being. I think you've just got to make it work for you, but be super conscious about screen time, and be open-minded to the fact that might influence your well-being, either in a positive or negative way.
Yeah, good. No, it's good answers. I think it's always been the case on like different audiences, and not to treat all platforms exactly the same. You have different audiences in different places, and you can use them in slightly different ways. But I definitely have noticed it's kind of like tectonic plates are constantly moving and changing, aren't they? Like for me, Twitter's always been my favorite platform, and I've always had the best results in terms of reaching audiences and communicating with people. But I've definitely found that Twitter is becoming less effective. It's basically a communication tool now, but less effective at sharing information that gets picked up with people. But I'm finding LinkedIn much more effective now than it ever was. So, for example, if I shared a video, I think I've said to you before, if I shared the same video on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, it would have a lot more views organically on LinkedIn than it would on Twitter and Facebook, unless I put a bit of money behind Twitter and Facebook. Like at the minute, organically, particularly video, seems to do really, really well on LinkedIn. And this LinkedIn Live that we're doing here, with it being a new feature that not many people got yet, they definitely seem to be pushing that as well. So, thought leadership, content on LinkedIn seems to do really, really well, and it stands out because there's still not that many people doing video. So I'm just personally, I'm enjoying it, but I'm also aware that they're all kind of trying to copy each other. You've now got stories in LinkedIn, and Twitter's now doing feeds, and they're all watching each other. So there's a danger that not only are the platforms trying to become the same as each other or similar features, but people are trying to use them in the same ways. Do you know what I mean? I've noticed a lot of people posting stuff on LinkedIn recently that in the past you would never see that on LinkedIn. It's much more like what they had for lunch, or just fishing for compliments sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, dynamic is interesting. I mean, what I'd always advise from a business perspective, if he's looking from a sort of business perspective, you've referenced there around posting content for yourself in a professional capacity, I would always advise try and simplify it down like an audience first approach. So rather than over egg like a tactical type of conversation around, is Twitter better than LinkedIn, or is Facebook better than Twitter, that type of thing. It's different for different people because you're looking to achieve different things. So, and probably the simplest way of starting that conversation is who the audience you're looking to reach. And the reason we talk a lot about LinkedIn is because of that business audience. If on professional capacity you're looking to reach that type of audience. Similar from a Twitter perspective, Facebook to a certain extent, if you're looking at a sort of more SME type audience typically. And I agree. I think it's a sensible observation around the different attributes such as video, stories, image, content. There's increasingly less to differentiate between the different platforms from a technical capacity. Stories is an interesting one. I mean, they're all interesting, really, but I think that originally, I don't say the wrong thing here, but it was like a Snapchat-driven piece where that was amongst that demographic, the young demographic that were using it when Snapchat really gained sort of popularity. It was they didn't call it stories, but it was their version of that really took off. And then, you know, Instagram followed suit, and here we are today with sort of LinkedIn stories and a Twitter version as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Again, I don't want to talk too tactical, but video is huge, as you've referenced. It's only going to grow in importance, popularity, effectiveness, and so forth. We see for clients looking to reach certain consumers, if their audience is on Facebook, you know, the opportunities that the Facebook platform and that enables via, you know, engaging audiences through video, you know, be that long form video, short form video, story type content is immense now. You know, it's only growing on LinkedIn, as you've referenced, and, you know, you read around LinkedIn and what LinkedIn publish themselves, and the information backs that up, that I think through 2021 we can only expect the importance of video to grow. And, you know, it makes sense because it's essentially an effective tool to communicate with your audience. You can have a deeper level of messaging that isn't just text-based, but it immerses the audience has the ability to immerse the audience that you're looking to reach in a deeper way. And we talked before about, or we mentioned before about the proliferation of messaging across particularly social platforms, and how it's very easy to become overwhelmed because of the multitude of messages now that are there and present on platforms. So, you know, that quality over quantity approach, which is then, you know, you talk about the tactical initiatives such as video, you know, the ability to produce quality creative to engage your audience is probably no more possible than with video. So, you know, it's that. So I think that's another trend for 2021. Essentially, is you know, again, these things sort of come around in circles, really. But, you know, creative has always been super important. Brand messaging, brand storytelling, and so forth. But again, I think it's going to become super important moving forward through this year, as well as the audience targeting and that we talk about from a media perspective. So that's one of the sort of standout things that we're talking to clients about through social platform advertising. Yeah,
well, video definitely does still work well, particularly if you've already got a bit of an audience behind you. You know, like I've got a decent audience, you've got a good audience as well. So I think, well, let's see this how many people we reach, but I'm expecting us to reach quite a significant audience with our combined following off the back of this. But definitely last year, because so many people were doing Zoom chats and webinars and videos, definitely I've been speaking to people who felt a bit overwhelmed with how much video content, and we're actually taking a step back and completely disengaging because it felt there was too much. They were either on meetings with Zoom or Teams all the time, and then there was all these video being shared on social media as well. So I think that will die off. Some people will get sick of doing it, and they'll realize they're not getting much of a response to some of the videos. So I think that will die off. But the people who stick at it and are consistent, and we're doing it beforehand, and we'll keep doing it, I think they'll win out eventually from that. But just want to mention a bit about audio. How they're moving, like definitely more and more people are sending audio clips, you know, through WhatsApp or Messenger or and then podcasts. And something new that I didn't know about until yesterday, there's something new called Clubhouse. So it's a brand new social network, but it's invite only at the minute. So Clubhouse, it's very much celebrities and, you know, influencers who are in there. You can register. So if you download the Clubhouse app, it's iPhone only at the minute. You register your interest, you add yourself to the waiting list. You choose what your username is, and you just wait for someone to let you in. So I did actually get invited in last night. So I joined and I got invited in by someone I know. Someone I know was already in there. But I'll get yourself on there, and I'll see if I can get you in. But basically, what it is, it's private rooms of conversations. So you can go in and listen to audio conversations just as a listener. You can put your hand up and you can join the conversation. So still getting my head around it, but last night was a really, really good conversation with a bunch of Silicon Valley VCs advising small business owners how to pitch and how to get investment. And I was listening to it for about an hour last night, and it was brilliant. It was like really, like the guys that were in it were proper heavyweight VCs.
Brilliant.
So that's something to keep an eye on, audio and but podcasts. Have you got any thoughts on podcasts quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just like to make the point that I suppose with content, it's really about what suits the objectives you're looking to achieve. Again, I don't want that to be sort of a broad sweeping statement, but audiences and how to engage those audiences is usually the way that we talk to clients. So before we dive into the different types of content, it's usually about saying, like, well, what do you want to achieve? Who are you looking to reach? What's an effective way to do that? And what's the messaging that's going to achieve that? So, but yeah, you know, voice is growing in many ways. What I would say, though, to contrary to that, is actually the data, I believe, suggests that because of working from home, or the large movement of working from home since March last year, actually a lot of listenerships across things like podcasts have actually dropped, because a typical behaviour would, not just, again, I don't like general sweeping statements, but there was a behaviour in that type of area around people listening to podcasts and audio recordings on their commute into work and similar. But that will come back, right? And I think it will come back even more because of the growth in voice and the growth in this particular area. So, and actually, you know, communication, as you referenced there, via mediums such as WhatsApp and other, and you know, a big one that's talked about, but hasn't really come through with the expectation, or to the level that was expected a few years ago, is voice search. You know, particularly through mobile and using sort of voice-enabled search, with the growth of sort of virtual assistants and voice assistants like Alexa and so forth. You know, that whole area is growing again, not at the pace that was initially anticipated. For a few reasons that I won't go into, because it'd be quite easy to go on a tangent about that. But you know, again, that's growing. It will only grow, and I think once the technology increasingly enables, particularly what advertisers are looking to achieve through the likes of voice search, then that's another growth area that should be looked at. But yeah, I mean, audio podcasts and audio areas, we've seen from an advertising perspective, you know, the growth and opportunities in that area. The likes of sort of audio advertising on platforms like Spotify is growing quite a lot, and it's for certain clients where they can reach their audience effectively through that type of targeted advertising. It's a useful opportunity to look at, I'd suggest. Yeah,
definitely. I think because with the podcast that because I've got my own, you know, the Super Connector Show podcast, is that I can't see necessarily who's listening to it, but it is surprising who does listen to it, because I get people up to me saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed that show," or they message me, and they're not on Twitter, or they're not on LinkedIn, or they're not on Facebook, but they do like podcasts. So it's being aware that there are different audiences. So that one thing that I've started doing, which I've told you, is I've been doing these video interviews.
Yeah.
I've also been taking the audio from the video interviews and podcasts as well, and just I'm hitting all the bases, and that seems to be working. And there's something about that deeper connection you have when you're in someone's ear, when they're driving or when they're walking or out for a run or something, is really powerful.
So I suppose it's like that engagement level and that immersion with that type of communication, which is quite unique, I suppose. So yeah, that's a really good point.
I know that, well, the hour's up, and I know you've got to go for another call soon. So is there anything else you want to share on well-being at work, or the future of work, the way you see it over the next 12 months? I know it's difficult to make predictions, but
you know, first of all, you know, thanks so much for inviting me on. I mean, it's been brilliant, and the opportunity to talk about the importance of well-being is obviously, you know, really good. So thank you. It just suggests, you know, look, each their own. If you feel it's an important area and you can see the value in having the conversations about well-being, having the conversations about how we support each other as individuals, which has never been more important in my view than it is right now. You know, I'd encourage people to have those conversations. Let's be open. Let's communicate effectively with each other, support each other. If you as an individual are struggling, you know, reach out to those who are close to you. It's good to talk. I know, again, not my phrase, but genuinely I believe that. So, you know, open the conversation up and let's work through it as this area evolves and quite rightly grows in importance, recognized as growing as important in importance, and you know, let's champion that. And I'm certainly going to be an advocate and a champion of it myself. And I truly believe that positive well-being, positive mental health, and everything that goes with that is super important for many reasons. So thanks for allowing the platform to talk about it today.
Yeah, thanks. Really appreciate it. Always enjoy talking to you. So thank you again for doing this, and love to hear everything that you had to say on the topic. Okay.
Good. All right.
Thank you.
Speak to you later.
See ya.
Bye bye.